Good evening. Welcome back to Finnerty. Good to see you. I'm Rob Finnerty. When George Floyd said, "I can't breathe," the world stopped. Everybody watched the video. The police were called racist. Derek Chauvin is doing life in prison as we speak. And the left turned George Floyd into a hero all over the world. A criminal, a drug addict, a deadbeat dad. But when that happens to a white man, when a white man is stabbed to death by a radical Sikh, and says, "I can't breathe" 9 times on camera, nothing. Nothing from the media, nothing from our own media, but silence. And normally I would not dedicate a monologue to something that happened in England, but this is too important. This is the real George Floyd story, and this is why this show exists, to call this stuff out. And you will see no better example of anti-white bias, of police bias and media bias and racism against whites than what just happened in England that nobody was talking about on Sunday. Again, this is why we're here, to cover what the rest of the media covers up. On December 3rd, 2025, 18-year-old Henry Nowak, a white man, was stabbed to death while he was walking home alone after a night out with friends. He was stabbed by 23-year-old Vikram Digwa, a Sikh man who carried this thing, an 8-inch long dagger with him. He was able to carry it legally as part of his Sikh faith. And Digwa stabbed Henry 4 times for no reason. We learned that during the trial. But when Digwa's brother called police, he told them that they'd just been attacked racially, because if you live in England or here and you say the word racism, the world suddenly stops.
Sorry, we just got attacked racially by some white person.
Right, okay. Whereabouts are you?
We're on Belmont Road.
Just out in the street, are you?
Sorry?
You're just in the street?
Yeah, literally. I just parked on my car to come home and he attacked my brother.
You're talking about verbally or physically?
No, he physically attacked my brother. We're Sikhs, we wear turban, and he just attacked my brother.
We're Sikhs, we wear turbans, and he just attacked my brother. We're Sikhs and we wear turbans, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I'm Catholic. I wear polo shirts. Nobody cares. Certainly not the police. Certainly not in a situation like that. But if I had a turban on or a hijab, police are now being trained to care more. Care more about them than they do about you. And this is happening here. In this case, even when somebody is murdered. And when the police arrived at the scene, Digwa claimed that Henry had knocked off his turban. Can you imagine that, knocking off somebody's turban? It didn't happen. So what did the police do? They arrested the white guy. They arrested Henry, who was lying on the ground bleeding to death.
Yeah, he's grabbed my brother, he's took my turban off, started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Okay, start.
Alright, let's get you out of there, shall we? Oh. Grab his other arm. What's happened to you, alright? You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate. Hand? Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
Yeah. This is like
Hands your foot. Sandy's been stabbed, so
Where
just
do you
check
think
him.
you've been stabbed? In the face? I know, but we have to check, don't we?
No.
In the face?
Just get these to back off.
Can you hear him there? It's difficult to watch. It should be. That's why we showed all of it. We're not going to cover this up like the rest of the media. You can hear Henry pleading with police, begging them for help, begging them. He's saying, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe." He said it 9 times on camera. Then he said, "I've been stabbed." And one of the police officers, who's still on the police force, said, quote, "I don't think you have been, mate." Henry Nowak died just minutes after we stopped the video. He bled out in the back of a police car. The last words that he heard on this earth were Hampshire police in England reading him his rights because he knocked off somebody's turban, which never happened. Because in the post-George Floyd world, the police are now being trained with anti-white bias. Police are being trained to evaluate your race when they arrive at the scene. And the results in England were what you just saw. Police arrested an innocent 18-year-old with his entire life ahead of him because a person of color lied to the police and said an evil white man knocked off his turban, and the police believed him because they've been trained to believe them. But unlike George Floyd, the saint, here in America, Henry Nowak did not have meth in his system or fentanyl. He wasn't a criminal or a deadbeat dad. He didn't resist arrest. But he was white. That was his crime on this night. And he was stabbed to death, again by a Sikh wearing a turban, and the police didn't care. And I keep referencing the turban because it's important. Because even after he was finally arrested, he was able to have his mugshot taken with a turban on. Here it is. And we do the same thing here in America. I have no idea why. Somali women keep getting arrested, and they're allowed to wear their hijabs because the police don't want to offend anybody, because turbans and hijabs are part of their religion, even though it makes it really difficult to identify somebody down the road if they're wearing a turban or a hijab. But the police don't care as long as we don't offend any Muslims or any Sikhs. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, stated after the death of George Floyd in 2020 that, quote, the killing of George Floyd has shown a light on racism experienced by black people. And then he did what you're seeing on your screen. He knelt. The British Prime Minister, after the death of a black drug addict in Minnesota, knelt for him. But after Henry Nowak was murdered by a Sikh wearing a turban just a few miles away from Keir Starmer's office, Starmer said, quote, this is an awful, shocking case. This is the horror of knife crime, and it is absolutely something we are determined to crack down on. Think about that. And since the British government took away the rights of people to own guns, you have Sikh maniacs like Vikram Digwa driving around suburban London, look at this little fellow, with swords, wearing dresses. This is a video of Digwa in some kind of road rage incident where he took out a sword from the backseat of his car in suburban London, which is now the new normal in England, because if you let the third world into your country, eventually your country becomes the third world.
Come on! Recording him. Come on, man, please.
Weź to samochodu koniec.
You got big problem, mate. You got big problem. No knife, no knife.
Look at this foolish little idiot getting out of his car with a sword in a dress. That's Vikram. Vikram and his brother Gurpreet were also apparently fond of knives. Here they are again. This is in England. This is not the streets of Agrabah, doing a little knife demonstration for all the other people wearing turbans in Britain. Terrific stuff, gentlemen. You're so very talented right there. That's amazing. I don't know how you choreographed that, just standing around doing this for a couple seconds in front of people with turbans. This week, Vikram Digwa was found guilty of murder and sentenced to the maximum of 21 years in prison. That happened on Monday, so 3 days ago. 21 years, not a lot. Outside the courthouse, though, Henry's father had the courage to say this after he was harassed and called racist by the Digwa family for months. He had the courage to finally stand up to these people in England.
With his final words, he told officers that he could not breathe. He told them he had been stabbed. In fact, Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. The police have said they were misled by the murderer and that the scene when they arrived was complex. Unfortunately, it seems to us the truth is much simpler. He was not handcuffed when arrested. He was not handcuffed when transported to the police station. As far as we understand, he was never handcuffed at all.
Essentially, everything they told us that happened to George Floyd actually happened to Henry Nowak. The difference, after George Floyd died, there were months of riots, looting, and murder. As of this morning, the New York Times had only written one story about Henry. They wrote it today, and they blamed the right. They blamed conservative media. They blamed me for making Henry's death political. The authorities in Britain are investigating police officers who handcuffed a student, Henry Nowak, while he was dying, in a case that has been increasingly politicized. Oh, increasingly politicized, New York Times. You mean like you did with George Floyd? To date, the New York Times has written 6,397 stories about George Floyd. Think about that. There are more than 200 murals and statues dedicated to George Floyd all across the country, which averages out to at least 4 in every state, meaning Hawaii and Alaska have at least 4 murals to a drug addict criminal, which is more than most real saints, by the way. And there are even George Floyd murals in Great Britain, but there are none for Henry Nowak, not one. He was killed more than 7 months ago for no reason by someone who shouldn't even be in England. There are no statues of Henry, no murals, no paintings, no one cared until this week, until Monday. And Henry would be alive tonight if the police did their job. But instead, an 18-year-old is dead because the police let him die because they didn't want to offend somebody wearing a turban. And that is the real George Floyd story.